Welcome back to the Crypto Trends Podcast, where we cover all things cryptocurrency, blockchain, Web 3.0, and AI. I'm Robert Croak, and I'm joined by my co-host, Armando Pantoja. Both of us and our amazing team are excited to bring you the best information, guidance, and strategies each and every Wednesday. So follow along and always remember to take notes and take action. So today, we're going to mix it up a little bit. And before we get into talking point number one, let's go back in time a little bit. And I want to share with our listeners our stories of how we got started in cryptocurrency. And I'll go first because my story is pretty dramatic and scary. And it's a mess and it's pretty legendary. So my story in history in cryptocurrency begins in mid-2010 when one of my genius workers whose job was to tell me where to invest my money came to me and said, I have our next investment. And I was like, great, what is it? He handed me a one-page PDF that was printed out of what we were going to do, and we were going to open a Bitcoin exchange, and he said that he needed $15,000 to build the website, get the insurance, get everything we needed, and then populate the exchange. So at that point, $10,000 of the $15,000 was going to be used to buy Bitcoin at 7 cents a piece. So let that sink in for a minute. I was going to buy 166,666 Bitcoin at that time back in 2010. So as the months went by, a couple months after that, and we were getting ready to do the project, I got talked out of building the Bitcoin exchange by several lawyers, including one SEC lawyer that claimed she knew all about where crypto was heading, Bitcoin specifically, and they all said the same thing. If you want to go to jail, or if you want to flush $15,000 down the toilet, go ahead. Cryptocurrency will never see the light of day and will never be legal. So that is my beginning. Now, fortunate enough, I did not do the Bitcoin exchange, so I did not become a billionaire from it. But I did buy my first Bitcoin at $7 a piece. And so I was very fortunate to still get in early, not at 7 cents, but at $7. And that's where I got started in cryptocurrency, which is really tough to go through, psychologically when people ask about it because they know I started early. But that's how I got started in cryptocurrency.
So I had a different path. So I got out of college, studied computer science. I took a job in Nashville right after that. It was a company called EdgeNet, early AI company. It wasn't as advanced as AI is now, but it was more, expert systems, which is a subset of AI. So, but we dealt with the housing market, right? 2007, 2008, there was a crash in the housing market. Our company was directly related to housing. So I got laid off, right? So, and then I'm sitting around and like, well, what am I going to do now? Well, I can go back to grad school. So I went online and found the top grad schools. USF, at the time I was in Nashville, USF was the fourth best school in the country at the time in computer science. So I moved down here, had to wait a year to get residency so I could get, state tuition. And then I went to first day. And then they're like, what do you want to study? I said, well, software security. He said, well, you need a subset. You need a specialization. I looked at the specialization. I saw cryptology, which is the study of encryption between computer systems and the way data is encrypted and how and, the methods. So I got in there, right? In the first year, this is 2009, 2010, the second year, I heard people talking about Bitcoin. So I'm going to get into this. So I get into it, and they said, where do I buy it from? Well, it's a dude at the dog track here that sells it. So I would go down there, and this is 2010, and I would buy it directly from him. He would charge ridiculous rates. And the first ones I bought were like $70, $80. So I was buying it, and I was really buying it to like mess with, and, we were doing software with it, and I would spend it and whatever. I didn't see it as an investment at the time. So 2013 hit Mt. Gox. And I think like $50 million worth of Bitcoin was stolen. At the time, it was a huge amount. Mm-hmm. And all the news said that Bitcoin was insecure. This is an example. And I believed it. So I gave rid of everything I can. I forgot about it for 2 years. Now, what brought me back into it is Ethereum. Now, because Ethereum is more like a giant computer system, smart contracts, NFTs and all this stuff. And I saw the potential in that very early. So I got in at $3, $4, $5. That's the first Ethereum I bought. And then that's when I really first saw it as an investment around that time. And then, I went on and created ICO Ranker and all this other stuff. But Ethereum really changed my mind. Bitcoin didn't make me a believer, but Ethereum did.
Yeah.
And so it is what led me to where I'm at today. So I just, be honest, was at the right place at the right time in grad school. And I was studying the technology that backs up cryptocurrency. So, I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, it's always weird for me to go back to those early years of cryptocurrency and like thinking back that I almost pulled the trigger and bought 166,000 Bitcoin at 7 cents. But then I also think I remember vividly being in the car with a good friend of mine, Dan Fleischman. We were talking about it. And that was when Ethereum was $7. And I remember in the car buying it. And it was so easy to buy because when we got started, it was really difficult to buy Bitcoin. It took like a team of people to figure it out. That's why it's so crazy now in 2024 that people are still afraid to buy. We can do it in 2 or 3 clicks. Back then, I felt like I needed a team of engineers to figure it out. So it was crazy. But then I remember like one of the cool stories, and we can go into point one, was we were at a crypto conference in Las Vegas. We were all at the bar that night, and we were counting down Ethereum first getting to $1,000. And it was like $996, $997, and it hit $1,000. And
I remember that.
And I immediately at the bar sold 300 Ethereum for $1,000 a piece. And I thought I was a hero, and I was so smart because my returns were just crazy. I think at that point, my dollar cost average was like $42 on one Ethereum. Yeah. So I thought I was a genius. And now here we are talking about Ethereum potentially going to $10,000, $12,000, $20,000 in the coming years. So of course, you never want to look in the rearview mirror, because if so, I would want all of the crypto and Bitcoin back that I've sold over the years.
Yeah, just you can only do you can make decisions based on the information you have at that time. And a lot of people look backwards and say, man, but you didn't know. So you have to, that's why people say, well, you got in Bitcoin at $80. What I knew at the time was that it wasn't an investment, and it was just a currency that was going to, start being a replacement for the US dollar. I didn't know it was going to go to this. I didn't know it. I thought it was just like a geeky thing that only, people, techies and stuff were into. I understood the power and the potential, but I did not see it. I did not see it as an investment that early. It took me a few more years for me to conceptualize that. So like I said, is you only can do what information you have at the time. So that makes me, I don't feel bad about it. And, I was lucky enough to get in still very early. Like I said, even now it's still very early. One day somebody's going to look back at 2024 and say, man, you got in then? In 10 years, that's what people are going to say.
Yeah, that's the point I'm dying to talk about right now. Is it's so crazy that in 2024, we're still saying it's early. And back then, 2010, 11, 15, even 2017, when I would tell my wealthy friends and family members, hey, you should throw $5,000 into cryptocurrency, you should buy a couple $1,000s worth of Bitcoin, they thought I was the crazy guy on the corner, because they didn't understand the technology. So it's so crazy sitting here today in our studio talking about this with so many of the followers and listeners. And it's just amazing that we are still early enough to really make, legacy money and change people's lives by investing in cryptocurrency and the underlying blockchain. So it's just so exciting to be here, and I love what we get to do every single week with the Crypto Trends podcast. So Armando, I know that was a little long-winded, but I just wanted all of our listeners to know, our history in cryptocurrency and our backgrounds, because, we've been both at this for a very long time. We've made millions of dollars in this sector and continue to do so. We're not just two guys that decided to jump on a bandwagon 6 months ago when crypto started getting hot again. So Armando, we've all heard about JPMorgan's larger move into Bitcoin, despite Jamie Dimon's skepticism. It seems like they've been doing this for quite some time. And is it all a front and market manipulation? Or is Jamie Dimon just acting out against JPMorgan because of his own opinions?
He's the CEO. He's the chief executive officer. That means that he executes everything that goes downstream. Yep. This is all orchestrated, I believe. And if you look back at history, he's been doing it for a while. Mm-hmm. But JPMorgan has been making secret moves in the background, and other CEOs have done it. If you look at even Mark Cuban, he was against Bitcoin early on, and he came out for it after he got his position. So it's been going on with a lot of the world's richest people for a while. He's just the last one to he's just the last one to really come around publicly. So like I said, it's a crazy situation. Anybody involved in crypto has heard his stories or his videos. People forward them to you. See what Jamie Dimon says? You got to get out. People use his statements as an example against Bitcoin, right? So that's the whole point, is that he can drag down the market a little bit. He can make people look away from what JPMorgan is doing in the background so they can get their positions in. And then he'll finally come out like every other CEO, every other billionaire for cryptocurrency over the next 2 to 3 years. But he'll say, it changed, or now that the banks can hold custody, I'll believe in it now. That's what he's going to say in a few years. Now, you notice that JPMorgan is doing the exact opposite of what he says. The news just dropped that they're a heavy participant in cryptocurrency, and they're an active participant in BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF. All of this news was to keep people away from cryptocurrency. Bitcoin over the last decade has been the best performing asset of any asset, including stocks, gold, and bonds.
Absolutely. It really highlights the complex dynamics in financial institutions where personal opinions and institutional strategies can diverge. This could represent JPMorgan's broader acknowledgement of cryptocurrency's role in modern finance, regardless of Jamie Dimon's personal beliefs. And I think that's something that's really coming out in the forefront in all the news and interviews he's doing right now. That's why it just feels so strongly to me that it is manipulation rather than him just towing the line for the company. So yeah, it's just really scary what they're doing with him in these interviews. But obviously he's the CEO, so he's going to do what he wants to do.
Yeah, that kind of takes us into our second point. With the Ethereum ETF on the horizon, could this possibly skyrocket Ethereum's price? Now, Robert, with JPMorgan's optimism about the SEC possibly approving the Ethereum ETF, what do you think could happen over the next few months or even a few years?
I think if the SEC grants approval for the spot ETFs, it will definitely lead to significant positive sentiment. It might also increase institutional involvement in Ethereum, enhancing its legitimacy and potentially driving up prices. I mean, the ETF approval would make Ethereum more accessible to a broader range of investors, which would then immediately create more price action, probably to the upside. And it's just important to understand that, this looks like it's going to get approved. It's just a matter of when.
So yeah, I like Ethereum's use case a lot better than Bitcoin. Now, I'm a big believer in Bitcoin as well, but Ethereum's use case is easier to explain to the average investor. Now, if you talk about Bitcoin, you talk about this coin that's abstract. People are like, well, what is that? But if you go to almost anybody that is familiar with technology, and you say, well, there's a worldwide computer system that can process data. The data is always available. It's redundant. It's safe. It will never be erased, and it always will be available to access, right? And it's transparent. And you say, well, we're going to sell credits to use this system. And then as this system grows, the credit value will go up. And people, that's a great idea. I've actually explained that to crypto critics and didn't say the word Ethereum. And they're like, oh, that's a great idea. I'm saying, well, that's what Ethereum is. Right. That's exactly what it is. So that's easier to explain to somebody, even the crypto critics, that system has value as opposed to Bitcoin. So I think once this Ethereum ETF is approved and that use case starts circulating on social media, on the traditional media, and around the water coolers and whatnot, it's going to cause the price of cause the price of Ethereum to explode.
Yeah, I mean, the way to look at it is in anticipation of these regulatory decisions, it can really be a significant market mover regardless of the final outcome. We all know that the use case for Ethereum is widely incredible for so many different platforms and uses and sectors of the market. And that's why I think that no matter what happens, I do believe that these Ethereum ETFs will get approved. It'll likely be later on in August, probably, or September, from what I'm hearing from the insiders. What I want to ask you is, do you think with the possible approval of the Ethereum spot ETFs, amidst all of these Wells notices that are circling around, do you think that this signals stronger regulatory confidence in crypto overall in the markets?
Yeah, I think it does. And I I've went on record for saying this, is the SEC is fighting a losing battle.
Yep.
And there's a lot of other people that agree with me. And a lot of other pundits and analysts are saying the same thing. They're trying to hold on to power and trying to resist the new technology, which we know from the past is almost impossible. If you remember back 10 years ago, maybe even a little bit further, the same thing happened to Uber on a much smaller scale. Uber came out all over the world, and taxi drivers in every major country didn't want it. They were protesting outside. Airports shut it down. But the problem is that the users wanted it. The greater population wanted it. It was more efficient. It was cheaper at the time. It's a little bit more expensive now, and it was a better way to hail, car share rides. From the airport or wherever you are.
Yep.
So Bitcoin is along that same path. It's a more efficient, greater crypto too. Crypto is a more efficient way of doing these traditional finance operations. Payments, investments, fractionalization. Crypto is the perfect tech for this. So if the SEC continues going down that path of resisting and fighting, especially within the United States, the only thing that's going to happen is that crypto will still emerge as the dominant tech when it comes to finance, but all the other countries who don't do that will be far ahead of us.
Yeah, and that's one of the scariest points of everything we're dealing with is that if the government doesn't rein in the SEC and they keep going on these witch hunts, they could potentially scare off the U.S. being one of the leaders in the world in blockchain technology. They've already shown the propensity to do this over the last 2 or 3 years. And it's just really, really bad for the U.S. because crypto and us being leaders in many of the different sectors and blockchains and projects that are happening could really be game-changing for the U.S. economy long-term. And we just have to get a handle on the SEC and their actions, because I believe it's okay for the SEC to do their jobs, but if you don't give the Coinbases of the world a roadmap of what they need to follow, how can they follow it? And I think that's been one of the biggest problems I've had in the last 2 or 3 years. They're saying, you're doing this wrong, but they're not telling them how to do it right. And that's very problematic and has been the biggest thing holding back the crypto markets for the past 3 or 4 years is Gary Gensler's witch hunt instead of providing a blueprint of how to move forward.
And that's the thing I don't like is that to maintain power and keep power, they go and say you're doing something wrong, but they won't tell you what you're doing right. Exactly. Because that gives them more power temporarily.
Yep.
Because that's like, think about this. Let's say you're a child and your parent is punishing you. And you don't even know why. So they can literally punish you for anything. It gives them a wider range of power because there's no specification on what's wrong and what's right. They've been doing this for years. They won't put out any clear guidance on cryptocurrency and cryptocurrency startups or blockchain companies.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a great takeaway, Armando. And let's get into our next section, and that is the meme coin stock frenzy making a comeback? We all saw what happened with GameStop in the recent days, and meme coins started to surge because of that. So could the current activity around GameStop's meme coin signify the resurgence of the meme coin stock frenzy we witnessed a few years back? Because it's been crazy watching the price action in the last couple days.
So it's crazy, Robert. There's a token out there on Solana, on the Solana blockchain that's based on GameStop. It's up 1,900% right now. So like I said, whatever's happening with AMD and GameStop in the stock market has carried over to cryptocurrency. And a lot of meme stocks are doing extraordinarily well right now. GameStop is affecting everything. Even Pepe Coin, which we haven't heard about in a few weeks or maybe even a few months, is at all-time highs based on this new resurgence of meme coin attention. It all came from one guy. What was his name? Roaring Kitty.
Roaring Kitty. Yeah, you guys should all watch the movie of the first time around. Yeah. It's pretty hilarious.
So there's a guy, he hasn't posted since 2021. So he posted a few memes over the last couple of days. One, I think it was either 1 or 2 or maybe even 3. And all of a sudden, people thought that was a signal that meme coins were coming back and he was going to start pushing this movement again.
Yeah, it's intriguing, Armando, especially considering the historical context of similar asset behaviors. It's crucial for traders in our audience to keep an eye on these movements as they often reflect broader market sentiment and speculative ways that could potentially prevent both risk and opportunities. So it's a really great time because there's so many good entry points right now. I know some of you, you're scared, you're nervous, you're having these knee-jerk reactions because you think crypto's dead because of all the false narratives out there. Trust me, this is the time when the wealthy get wealthier and you just really have these great buying opportunities.
Now, people always ask us how long are these movements going to take place. It's hard to judge that, but in the past, we've seen that a lot of times they will take a life of their own. On social media, on traditional media, like we said, around the water cooler. And sometimes it'll cause new people to jump in, pushing that price even higher and higher. And it's hard to judge when it's going to stop. That's why it's important to practice risk management along the way, because you never know when it's going to stop. So take your gains along the way. Don't hold any overnight positions. Just practice a higher level of risk management.
Right. The speculative nature of meme coin stocks and tokens means that while there's potential for substantial gains, there's also a significant chance of sharp declines. Traders should stay informed and perhaps considering diversifying their portfolios to mitigate some of these risks. The meme coin stock phenomenon is a fascinating part of today's market landscape, and it's one that requires both caution and curiosity. But in my opinion, I would not have more than 5% of your portfolio in the meme sector, just because I think it turns more into gambling and less into investing. So we want to make sure we still, like we always talk about, keep diversified in all of the hot sectors where we believe there's growth, rather than just going all in hoping to hit that 1000x with a meme coin, because that's not investing, that's gambling. So Armando, let's get into the last section of today's episode. Are we witnessing the revolution of Ethereum in relation to their transaction costs? We've seen the Dencun upgrade, and now we see the proposal EIP 7706, which was proposed by Vitalik. And what it does is it introduces this potentially lower cost for specific types of transactions. Walk our audience through it a little bit. What does this mean? Because between that and the Dencun upgrade, it's going to just revolutionize the use of Ethereum and the cost to do so. Everyone complains about gas fees, and this is going to change the game for Ethereum, which then leads to our belief that Ethereum is going to keep growing and growing, and potentially maybe one day overtake Bitcoin as the number one in market cap. Walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, I believe that one day Ethereum will overtake Bitcoin, and it just reminds me of how technology is adopted. And that's why I always tell people. People complain a lot about Ethereum gas fees all the time. Gas. But with technology always starts out as expensive. VHS tapes were like $100 when they first came out. Cell phones were $2 a minute. I mean, technology always starts out expensive and then it gets better and more efficient and cheaper. So that's the same path that Ethereum is going down. So what this new proposal is going to do is going to reduce fees for certain transactions that are heavy data, low computational. So what this does is it opens up a whole new world to developers to develop NFTs, to develop those smart contracts on the blockchain, on Ethereum's blockchain, and could power a whole new world of innovation.
Yeah, it definitely presents a promising development, boosting Ethereum's utility and also helping it appeal to a broader audience. If the community approves it, we could see a significant impact of how the platform is perceived and utilized because, like you said, everyone complains. They love Ethereum, but they hate the gas fees. So we'll really have to just keep an eye on how this unfolds, because I think this is all huge news for Ethereum as a whole. And I'm really excited to see what happens in the coming months with this. Okay, Armando, we're going to go into the Q&A section. We have some really great questions tonight. Jace Drone asks, please talk about Bitcoin Layer 2 ecosystem and the emerging narrative. I like stacks and OrdiSwap.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, is that technology is normally built on layers, right? Now, just for example, the internet has 7 layers. The internet that we use today is 7 layers. It always starts at the beginning. The first layer, and they built layers on top. First, it was just the internet. Then it was the world. Then it was the World Wide Web, and then it was the Then now we have the presentation layer, which is how we see things, the markup, the graphics. That all didn't exist at first. It took 20 years to get to that point of what the internet that we use today. So that's what's happening right now with cryptocurrency, is that the first things, the blockchains are just the layer ones, right? So that's what everything gets done, saved, and all the transactions get recorded. So as we move up to layer 2, that's going to make almost, any blockchain that has layer 2 solutions makes it easier to use. That could include making transactions faster. It could include making them cheaper. It could include creating, address wallet addresses more easier to understand, like ENS does on Ethereum. So a lot of these things are going to make these blockchains easier to use. So layer 2 is a needed solution. It shows us progress as we're going towards Bitcoin, cryptocurrency in general, becoming a mainstay and something that we use every day. And it's going to make it easier for the average person. Right now, to be honest, cryptocurrency is too hard for the average person to understand and use every day. And it's also too expensive. So with these layer 2, layer 3, layer 4 into the future, we may get, I don't know how many layers before it's 100% usable, but all of these layer 2 solutions are something like, and we talked about stacks, and we talked about OrdiSwap. OrdiSwap's a great one because it allows, it's a layer 2 solution to allow you to buy, trade, and even create ordinals on top of Bitcoin. So it's going to make it more like an NFT type thing, a little bit, a lot like it, but not 100% the same. But it's going to increase the usability of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything in cryptocurrency. Is the easier the adoption, the easier to buy and sell, the easier to disrupt different sectors is going to make it that much better. And yes, I like stacks and OrdiSwaps because I think OrdiSwap's strongest point for me is providing the ease of liquidity. And that's a huge thing for people, is always worrying about liquidity. So let's go to our second question. David asks, I would love to know your thoughts on Quant. Your insight and approach to investing in crypto is refreshing with so many hype shows out there. I've owned Quant for a very long time. It's an Ethereum token, and it just really is helpful in enterprise software solutions. And it really just bridges the gap for a lot of other projects. So that's why I've liked Quant. I've owned it for a long time. I still think it's a great project and people should own it. But I'm a big fan of it, and I know you are as well. And our last question comes from Samuel Travel. Great show. Solana definitely has its place. What is your take on BXN? It would be interesting to hear your thoughts since it goes into RWA. Obviously, we know that real world asset tokenization is huge and getting bigger and bigger. And Blackfort is a smart chain project, and it's really great for managing and transferring digital assets. So I think it'll have a key role as long as they can continue to build the team, and it'll do better in the future as there's more and more adoption in real world assets and tokenization. So I like that one as well. And Armando, I think that's it for this episode. And I want to thank each and every one of you for listening and following along. You can find us on Instagram at Crypto Trends Podcast and on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Make sure you share the podcast with a friend. Give us those 5-star reviews. And we are so excited for the remainder of 2024 and beyond and sharing our crypto insights with all of you. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.